Hello friends, it's Lisa, and today I'm going to be combining two of my favorite things, which is books and music, and I'm going to be recommending books that I read this year based off of my 2023 Spotify Wrapped. So in case you are not on the internet at all around this time of year, Spotify Wrapped is basically Spotify, the music streaming service, their way of showing us everything that we were listening to throughout the year. So you get the stats for your most listened to artists and your most listened to songs. They give you a playlist of 100 of your most listened to songs, which I always love listening to every year. And it's just really fun. It's fun to see what your friends were listening to throughout the year, their top artists, their top songs, all of that. So I have a great time looking through that every year, and I anticipate it every year. I have done this video a couple times before, so I'm excited to do it again this year. I have my top 5 songs that I'm going to be recommending some books for. Some songs I have a few books to recommend just because I couldn't decide. But yeah, I'm taking some of my favorite books that I read this year and I'm recommending them based off of my 5 most listened to songs this year. So let's just get into the recommendations. So this year I think I'm going to count down to my most listened to song. So we're going to start with my 5th most listened to song of the year. I think in other years I've done it the other way. I think this will be more fun. So my 5th most listened to song in 2023 was Bad Idea Right by Olivia Rodrigo, which I find a little surprising. I know I listened to it a lot, but when this first released as a single, I actually didn't really like it that much. It definitely grew on me a lot. I'm just surprised that it was in my top 5, especially when my 6th most listened to song, the song that didn't quite make it, was Feather by Sabrina Carpenter, and I was convinced that was going to be my top song of the year. So I'm just a little confused, but I'm gonna take it. I'm not mad about it. I love Olivia, so I'm very excited that that made it into my top 5. So Bad Idea Right is basically just Olivia getting a text from a guy, from an ex, and she knows going and seeing him would be a bad idea, and she's trying to ask her friends, seeing him would be a bad idea, right? And then she ends up going and doing it anyway. Even though she knows he's not a great guy, she really shouldn't be hanging out with him. She should just leave him alone and move on. She can't help but go and see him again. So I have a couple of recommendations for this. One of them being Our Violent Ends by Chloe Gong. So this is the sequel to These Violent Delights. So I won't say too much about what this book is about and the description of this one, but in this duology, you're following Roma and Juliet, who are a part of these rival gangs. This duology is set in the 1920s in Shanghai, and it's also a Romeo and Juliet retelling, which, is a little stressful because we kind of all know how that story ends. So I was really excited, but also very nervous to read this final book in this duology. I know she has continued to write books following some of these characters in other series, but I was very nervous to see how this wrapped up because of the fact that it is a Romeo and Juliet retelling. But Roma and Juliet, the two main characters, they were together when they were 16 years old, when they were a bit younger, and we get into the first book, These Violent Delights, knowing that a few years have passed and they have broken up. There was some event that caused them to break up. Now, years later, they're seeing each other again, kind of for the first time, and the two of them have to reluctantly work together because this monster is going across the city and killing people on both sides of these rival gangs. Both of them are being affected. They really just want to put a stop to it, so they have to work together even though they have all of this history and all of this tension and they don't like each other. So I feel like both of their perspectives are very much seeing them and getting involved in them again would be a bad idea, but they kind of can't help it. And Olivia in the song talks about lying to her friends about going and seeing him and being with him, and Roma and Juliet are definitely doing that as well with their family and their friends and what they're doing and what they're feeling, and there are a lot of secrets, and they're hanging out again and seeing each other again, and they know that it's a bad idea that they are together, especially because they are a part of these rival gangs, but they can't help but be in love. And so I thought this was a good example, or a good thing, a good fit. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. I thought this was a good fit for a Bad Idea, right? Also, Sam's been cleaning himself in the background of this video, so I don't know why he does that. He's he knows where the camera is, and then starts doing that. I'm really struggling to speak. My camera battery's already dying. This video is going to be a mess, but I do have another recommendation for a Bad Idea, right? And that is Honey and Spice by Bolu Babalola. So in this book, you're following Kiki, and she hosts this radio show for her campus, for the girls on her campus, kind of helping them with certain guy problems and relationships, and just warning them against certain type of guys. And she ends up getting a bunch of messages for her radio show about this one particular guy, Malachi. And so she kind of warns them against him and really advises them not to get involved with him. But then Kiki kind of gets in some hot water when she is caught kissing Malachi, and so the two of them decide to fake a relationship to try and save their reputations. And I really love this book. I kind of forgot how much I liked it. I ended up going back and watching the vlog where I read this because I read this back in February. It's been some time, but watching me like read that book and talk about it, like I remembered why I loved it so much. The characters and the banter and the humor and just the relationship itself I absolutely loved. So I definitely just recommend this in general, but I think that this works for this song as well because obviously Kiki has warned people against this guy. She knows that getting involved with him isn't going to be a good idea. She's heard all these stories about him and how he's not a good partner, how he's not a good guy, but she can't help but hang out with him and want to be with him, especially now that they're faking this relationship. And I think Olivia's doubt throughout the whole song of being like, seeing him tonight would be a bad idea, right? And her kind of doubting that and being like unsure if it actually would be a bad idea, I think is Kiki's feelings on Malachi throughout the whole book. And I just loved it. So I recommend picking this up. It's just a great romance. I absolutely loved it. So next up, my fourth most listened to song of 2023 was Bejeweled by Taylor Swift. And to me, this song, Taylor's kind of singing about a person or a past relationship or just something that held her back from being her shining, wonderful self. Something was holding her back. She sings about going out tonight and still shining and being bejeweled, and even though this person maybe not be treating her the best, she still shines. She's still the thing that captures all the attention when she walks into a room. I feel like the lyrics that kind of just capture the whole song perfectly is I miss you, but I miss sparkling. So the book that I'm recommending for Bejeweled is The Fiancé Farce by Alexandria Belfleur. So this is another book that features the fake dating trope, which is clearly one of my favorite tropes when done well. I just love it. And we're following Tansy and Gemma. Tansy, to kind of get her stepmom and her stepsister kind of off her back, they kind of always give her a hard time about not being in a relationship. So she ends up lying and says that she's in a relationship with someone named Gemma. She owns a bookstore. Tansy owns a bookstore, I should say. And she knows that Gemma is a model on some of these romance book covers that she sees when making up this lie. So that's what she goes with. And then they are at a wedding, and who walks in but Gemma, the model from the covers. So Tansy gets a little concerned that, you know, in front of all these people, in front of her family, this lie that she's created is gonna come crumbling down. But Gemma not only goes along with it, but kind of ups the whole lie and says that they're actually engaged. And it turns out that Gemma is part of this very successful, very wealthy family. They own like a printing business. Her grandfather, when he passed, left the company to her. But one of the kind of caveats to that was that she had to be engaged or married in order to inherit the company. So of course her family, who are a bunch of not nice people, really don't want Gemma to inherit this company. They don't want her to get it. So she thinks that this is the perfect opportunity to find a wife, find a fake wife, so that she can inherit this company from her awful family. Tansy agrees because Gemma offers to help fix up and save the bookstore that Tansy owns. So that's kind of the deal. The bookstore will be saved if Tansy agrees to be married to Gemma for a couple of years so that she can inherit this company. And I loved this book so much. It was so much fun. I loved the characters. I loved the banter, the humor, and I also loved the Taylor Swift references. There weren't too many, but there were just enough that made me happy. And I feel like Bejeweled kind of represents both Gemma and Tansy in their own personal journeys. Tansy had something happen to her in the past with a past relationship that made her very, very skeptical of getting into new relationships. That's why she's not with people very often, and she's kind of insecure and just very closed off a little bit and just scared to kind of put herself out there and be in a relationship because of this. And Gemma definitely has a bit more confidence, but I also think that she has to kind of fake it to make it a little bit. Her family has been trying to bring her down her whole life. They've really not set her up for success, and they really judge her for a lot of the things that she does, and they don't believe that she is capable of running this company. So to me, both Tansy and Gemma have had people in their lives that have tried to tear them down, have tried to keep them back from being bejeweled, from sparkling, but the two of them together, they let each other be jeweled. I'm sorry, I couldn't not make the joke. But yeah, I just feel like the two of them work so well together. They really allow each other to shine and to thrive, and they really encourage each other, and they really work well together to make their dreams together, but they're also their personal journeys and dreams come true. I feel like throughout this book, you really see them both go through very personal journeys, like on their own, of growing and evolving and realizing that they deserve so much more than what they've been given their whole lives, and then also have this relationship where the other person is so supportive. and lets them be jeweled, that I just thought that this was the perfect pick for these characters and their relationship. Both individually and together, I think that Bejeweled really represents their journeys throughout this book. So next we have my third most listened to song in 2023, which is Look at Us Now by Daisy Jones and the Six, the fake band. Yes, I'm obsessed. Okay, sorry if the lighting changed. Sam is sitting in the window. Sam is my cat. I feel like I say Sam and just assume everyone knows who I'm talking about. So this song is from the show Daisy Jones and the Six, which came out earlier this year. It's based off of the book by the same name by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and that's one of my favorite books of all time. I actually did reread it this year in honor of the show to prepare, so I could recommend it for this song, but that feels a little like cheating. So I thought of some other books that I feel like could kind of maybe fit the vibe of the song. I feel like the song, to me, I attach it so heavily to the characters from the show. It's kind of hard to separate it from that, or the characters from the book as well. But I did think of a couple of books, excuse you Sam, that I could recommend for this song. So a book I thought I could recommend for Look at Us Now is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This is one of the first books I read earlier this year, and I really enjoyed it. So you're following these two friends who meet, actually they meet when they're younger, and then they kind of reconnect in their college years. When they reconnect, they actually end up building this video game together. And before they've even graduated from college, they end up getting a lot of success from this game. So when they graduate, they decide to continue on this path of creating games together, and it kind of just grows and explodes from there. They get a lot of success, their company really grows, and really this book, yes, it's about them creating these video games and having this company, but it's really about these characters and their connection, their friendship, and also just like the struggles that they face with their relationships and in their personal lives. And it's a very character-driven novel. There's a bunch of other side characters that we see as well, and we see their struggles. It's really just a book that follows the ups and downs of life, and it says it's a novel that examines the multifarious nature of identity, disability, failure, the redemptive possibilities in play, and above all, our need to connect, to be loved, and to love. And I just feel like that is the perfect way to describe the book. So I feel like the song is very much describing a very tumultuous relationship, and knowing that within the show, the Daisy Jones and the Six show, we have Billy and Daisy who view this song very differently, and it kind of describes the very up and down relationship that the main characters in Daisy Jones and the Six have with one another, that I feel like it also really describes Sadie and Sam, who are the main characters in Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I feel like Sam and Sadie, both with their personal relationship, their friendship, and their professional relationship as well with the video games they're creating, the company they've created, they've gone through a lot of ups and downs. And I feel like the song is really reflecting on a journey, a relationship, whatever it may be, that has gone through a lot of those ups and downs. You know, how did we get here? How do we get out? Or this thing we've been doing ain't working out. We used to be something to see. Look at us now. And I feel like Look at Us Now can be taken in a few different ways. Like, look at us now. We've gone through all of these things and now we've made it to the other side. Or we've gone through all of this and now look at us. This is what we've become because of all of these things. And I feel like it's just very reflective of a whole journey, a whole relationship with somebody. And to me, that is really what this book is about. You're following Sam and Sadie through many years of their lives and seeing the journey and the ups and downs that they go through. And it's really just reflecting on that. I also have another recommendation for this song. I feel like this doesn't work as well, but like, it kind of does. Basically, like the whole concept of just like reflecting on a past relationship or something that, you know, occurred with somebody in the past and being really reflective of that, kind of going off of that idea. I wanted to recommend Happy Place by Emily Henry for this song. I basically just wanted to find a way to mention this book in this video at some point. So this was the best way I could do that. But this is a second chance romance between Harriet and Wynne. They dated back when they were in college. They were a part of this like group of friends first and then eventually got together, and their friends really supportive of this relationship, thought they were going to be together forever. And when in the current timeline they go on this group trip to Maine, they decide to lie to their friends about their current relationship status. They actually broke up months ago, and neither of them told any of their friends that that had happened. So on this trip to Maine that they take every year, they decide to pretend that they're still together, pretend that they're still in a relationship. And most of this book is really just them reflecting on their relationship and what happened and what went wrong and what things used to be like. It's a very reflective book on both of their past relationships, but also just like their personal journeys, their mental health, where they're both at, why their relationship ended, I think plays a role in both of what was going on in their personal lives. Like, I think what they were struggling with on their own definitely played a role in that. Sorry, I hit my tree. And in this book, you get 2 timelines. You see the current day on the current trip to Maine with their friends, them faking this relationship. Again, fake dating. It's a fave. But you're also getting flashback chapters, and you're seeing their relationship and how it evolved, how it came to be, but also where it might have fallen apart. And you spend a lot of time in the current day with these characters kind of reflecting on their relationship and where it went wrong, what happened, and where it's going. So I feel like it kind of works for the song, not as well as Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, but it still kind of works. And again, I just wanted to yell about Happy Place one more time. Okay, paused for a lunch break. Now we're back. So that was my 3rd most listened to song of the year. Now moving on to my 2nd most played song of 2023. It was Paris by Taylor Swift. I am so surprised that this made it this high up on my Spotify Wrapped, but also not really. I had a period earlier on this year, it was like a solid month, maybe even longer to be honest, where I just wanted to listen to this song all the time. It was constantly stuck in my head. It just made me so happy. I just love a catchy song. I feel like those are the songs that get stuck in my head and then I have to listen to it to help me get it out of my head. But then it just stays in my head. You know what I'm saying. Anyway, but in the song Paris, Taylor Swift is kind of talking about this relationship that she's in and how she feels like they're in their own bubble. They are just so happy in their relationship that what is happening around them and outside of them in their relationship, all of the people that might be saying things about them, questioning them, anything that could be going on outside of their little bubble doesn't really matter because they are so happy in their relationship and with each other, and that because they're so happy with one another, they feel like they're somewhere else. They feel like they're in Paris. Their relationship, it just feels so magical and like they're running through the streets of Paris and they're in this magical, wonderful, romantic place. Even if they aren't really in Paris, they're just in that kind of bubble, in that romantic bubble, and they're just so happy that nothing outside of that matters. So my recommendation for this is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. So in this book, you're following Alexis and Daniel, and from their very first meeting, they instantly hit it off. They instantly have this connection and just really like each other right from the start. The two of them couldn't be more different though. Like in the description, it says, Daniel Grant, who is a ridiculously hot carpenter who's 10 years younger than her and as casual as they come. And it is the complete opposite of Alexis, who is a sophisticated city girl. Alexis has grown up in this family that puts a lot of pressure on her. She is a doctor and they have like all of these expectations on her and what she needs to do in her career. She comes from this family that has this legacy of being these like world-renowned surgeons, but she doesn't really want to do that, even though her family puts all this pressure on her to become this surgeon and to continue her family's legacy. But as she starts to spend more time with Daniel, who's a lot more chill and relaxed and doesn't have all these expectations on him necessarily the way she does, and comes from this very small town, and she meets all the people in this town, I think she starts to question where her priorities lie and what she really wants, and is pleasing her parents and her family really what is most important. And I feel like because of how I was describing Paris earlier, this works so well for these characters and their relationship. I think both just the fact that when they are together, they kind of forget a lot of the outside pressures, you know, with their jobs or their families or whatever may be going on. They kind of forget about all of that because when they're together, their connection is just so strong and they just love each other so much that none of that really matters. They're kind of in their own bubble. But also physically, Alexis comes to Daniel's town all the time, this small town, and they kind of do get away. And yes, it's not Paris, but to them, like, it's this wonderful place, this wonderful small town. It just feels like it's their own special place. And, you know, this relationship that they're in makes them so happy that they feel like they're in Paris and they feel like they can be just in their own bubble. I just really liked this book. I loved the characters. I loved them, like, together, but also, like, their individual stories and what they were going through. I think the whole discussion of like Alexis feeling that pressure from her family and her figuring out like what it is she actually wants and pursuing that and coming to terms with that, I thought was really interesting to see and was quite emotional to read at points. And I just really liked the relationship. I loved Daniel. He was just such a precious angel bean. Plus, there's a goat. So what else could you want? And I also read the companion to this book this year as well, Yours Truly, and I think I liked that one even more than Part of Your World, but both of these I definitely think are some like new all-time favorite romances. I loved both of them so much. I loved her writing, I loved the characters, and the relationships themselves. They seemed very real and honest and like very real characters, and yeah, I just loved it. And I feel like their relationship and the pressures that they were facing and just the fact that they spent so much time with another and in this small town, it felt like their own version of Paris. And so I feel like this was the perfect book to recommend for this song. Okay, we have made it officially to my number one song of the year, the song I listened to the most in 2023, and that is, I'm sure you're going to be surprised, Dear Reader by Taylor Swift. I know, who would have anticipated a Taylor Swift song being my top song of the year? I don't really like her that much. I also just think Dear Reader is incredibly underrated. It is one of, if not my favorite song off of Midnight's. I love this song so much, and I wish it got more appreciation, but that's what I'm here to do with these book recs. We're going to talk about one of my favorite books of the year, actually, for this song. But first, I just have to quickly mention a book that I read this year that I actually, kind of found disappointing. However, it's still a part of one of my favorite series, so I have to mention it, and that's Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. So, Chain of Thorns is the third and final book in the Last Hour series. It is a part of the Shadowhunter world that Cassandra Clare's created, and this is sort of like the companion sequel series to the Infernal Devices. We are following the kids of, or like the next generation of the characters from the Infernal Devices. And I don't want to describe what this book is about because this is the final book in the series. Plus, I feel like this whole series is just like one big spoiler for the Infernal Devices, so I won't talk about details. However, I just had to briefly bring this up because Dear Reader is Matthew Fairchild's song. That is something that Andrew from Andrew Reads pointed out to me, I think, at the beginning of this year, and I genuinely think that that is what sparked my love of this song so much. I think it made me listen to it in a different way. And then also, one day I was cleaning and I just had the bridge stuck in my head and I was like, wait a minute, this bridge, it's incredible. There were a few reasons why I ended up loving this song, but the fact that it is Matthew Fairchild's song, it describes him so well, I think is why I love the song, or a part of the reason why I love the song so much. So I couldn't have a recommendations video where we talk about Dear Reader without bringing up this series that features Matthew Fairchild, because that is his song and it hurts me. So had to mention this, even though I actually found this book a little disappointing as a finale to the series that I was loving so much, but I still have such a soft spot for the Shadowhunter world. Even though I did find this disappointing, I still love these characters so much, so that is one of my recommendations. But I have another book that's like my actual recommendation for Dear Reader, and that is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I know, I feel like everyone is probably sick of seeing this book. It is so hyped and so well loved, but I think it's so well deserved. I am obsessed with this book. I think about it probably once a day, if not more. It's not right. It's not normal. I'm fine. So in this book, there is a war going on between the gods, and there are humans that have actually gotten involved in it now. They kind of pick a side on who they want to fight for, and Iris, one of our main characters, her brother, ends up enlisting in this war and is fighting on behalf of one of the gods. And after some time, she hasn't heard from him, and she also knows that her mother is really struggling. She's struggling with addiction, and so Iris, to kind of help herself feel a little bit better, starts writing these letters to her brother, and she slips them under her wardrobe. But then they start disappearing, and it turns out that they are showing up under the wardrobe of Roman Kit. And Iris and Roman actually work together. They work at the same newspaper, and they do not get along. They are rivals, if you could believe it. And so once these letters start showing up under Roman's wardrobe, he starts writing her back, and the two of them start forming this connection through these letters without them fully realizing who is on the other end of these letters. And the two of them just sort of form this connection while this war is going on. They actually both get involved in it by reporting on it for the newspaper, and I just love this book so much. I feel like I haven't shut up about this book since I read it. I feel like we all know at this point that this book is like my entire personality this year. And to me, this book works for Dear Reader for a few reasons. One of the very surface level reasons is just the fact that the song is called Dear Reader, and these two are writing letters to one another. But more so, I'm recommending this for Dear Reader because these two characters, Iris and Roman, do not get along when they are at work. They don't really know each other that well because they refuse to get to know one another because they're rivals. And so through these letters, they start to get to know each other on a deeper level. And both of them are really struggling with certain things going on in their lives, whether that's with their family or with the war or whatever it may be. And while these two are working together, they don't know about what the other one is going through. They don't really have those conversations. But through these letters, they start to open up about their struggles, and the two of them actually start offering advice to one another. And I feel like just the whole line of never take advice from someone who's falling apart, like they are both giving each other advice, but they're also falling apart on their own and struggling to take their own advice at times. And like getting into the bridge, that I love so much. Like, you wouldn't take my word for it if you knew who was talking, because they are rivals in the workplace, but they're having these secret letters that they're sending to one another. You know, they might not be taking this advice or be taking it as seriously if they knew who was on the other end giving this advice. Like spilling out to you for free, but darling, please, you wouldn't take my word for it if you knew who was talking. But also, if you knew where I was walking, to a house not a home, all alone, 'cause nobody's there, where I paste in my pen and my friends found friends who care. No one sees when you lose when you're playing solitaire. It's them. It is them. I feel like with their own struggles and what's going on, especially Iris, I feel like to a house not a home, all alone, 'cause nobody's there. It hurts, but it's so good. But yeah, I just think the whole song, you know, giving advice, but being like, you know, you can take my advice, but I'm also, you know, struggling. I'm falling apart. I feel like is what these characters are really going through, but they do come together and they do work together to work through those things that they're struggling with. And I love this book. I love this song. It just felt like the recommendation had to be there. Like, I just had to make it work. So I am recommending Divine Rivals for Dear Reader, my top song of 2023. And also maybe my top book of 2023. I still don't know at this point. But those are all of my recommendations for my Spotify Wrapped, my top 5 songs as some of my favorite books that I read in 2023. I love doing this video every year. It's so much fun. It's so fun to look at what I read during the year and also connect it to the music that I was listening to and loving throughout the year as well. It just feels like such a fun way to wrap up the year. Wrap up. Spotify Wrapped. Get it? But I would love to know down below in the comments if you have any recommendations for these songs, anything different that you would recommend than what I did, or if you use Spotify. I think Apple Music also does their own version of a Spotify Wrapped kind of thing. What were your top 5 songs of the year? I would love to know because I'm very nosy. I love looking at other people's Spotify Wraps. I think it's so much fun. But yeah, definitely let me know what your top 5 songs of the year were, and maybe even some recommendations you'd have for them. Just let me know all of the things down below. I just want to chat about music and books, my 2 favorite things. But that is going to be it for my Spotify Wrapped as book recommendations video. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.